see had to be done. Whatever you think of the president, he is stunningly transparent. He is targeting, taking on, in his words, those he sees as responsible for an investigation that now stretches beyond Russians' indisputable meddling to include, as we just discussed, possible campaign collusion with the Russians, possible obstruction of justice by the president himself. In that targeting, or taking on, he's now using presidential powers, not just words. And he's also, again, escalating his open war against law enforcement and intelligence communities. Another late Friday example, a tweet calling his own attorney general, in all caps, a blank.
He's drunk on power. He really is. And I think he's abusing the powers of that office. I think right now this country is in a crisis in terms of what Mr. Trump has done and is liable to do.
What is most interesting in the rebuke from all the former intelligence officials is that many of them actually take issue with John Brennan. Many of them think John Brennan is now a paid contributor on MSNBC, and they think he has been too partisan, and they think he's out of his lane in some of these issues. But they think the big question is not what John Brennan says, but that this is America, and that he has a constitutional right to free speech, and that the president is punishing him. And actually, what's most striking is the president makes clear, the White House says it's because of the things he says on television. Yeah. The president made clear in that interview with you that it's got nothing to do with that, or at least that's secondary. Brennan was there at the beginning, like Comey, therefore he's the enemy.
Right. From the podium when this was announced, this action against Brennan was announced, Sarah Sanders had a much more nuanced version of this. My colleague Peter Nicholas gave him a broad, open-ended question. He got pulled into the Oval Office. This was announced today. What do you think about it? And what was striking is where the president immediately went to was Brennan's connection to the Russian interference issue that has frustrated him from almost day one and continues, this morning. When the announcement was made, there's a lot of criticism that this was made in order to divert attention from Omarosa. Mission accomplished by doing that when he ties this directly, to political motivations.
And Washington Post and others reporting they have a list of others, and the Washington Post even quoting senior administration officials saying they're going to roll them out to distract from bad news headlines. What?
Well, that's a Trump strategy, right? It's a classic Trump strategy. You create drama, you put out a list of potential people that could come next. Maybe we get one a day, one a week for the next several weeks. But it does, as Michael said, it really does show the level of frustration that the president has. This is not because he believes that John Brennan is violating, some type of norm for intelligence officials. This is directly related to the fact that Brennan was there giving reports to President Obama about what he was seeing on Russian interference and what he believed was some type of connection between that interference and the Trump campaign.
And if you look at the names involved here, forgive me, if you look at the names involved here, again, it is a remarkable list of these former top intelligence officials, people who have served in Democratic and Republican administrations. William Webster goes back to the Reagan administration and the George H.W. Bush administration, Robert Gates, George Tenet, Porter Goss, I could go on and on here. People who've served in the military, people who've served in the intelligence community, people who frankly have kept us safe pre and post 9/11. Admiral McRaven also speaking out against the president. It's just a sign of our times, right, that these are people who normally speak about military issues, speak about intelligence issues, don't get involved in the day-to-day big political debates. But is that part of the already legacy of the President Trump, that everybody has to take sides?
Well, he's politicizing things that haven't been politicized in the past. Security clearances have not been political in the past. Democrats and Republicans have kept them after leaving office. And I think what we're seeing from a number of these officials is that they're a little bit worried about the danger of equating attacking or criticizing the president with attacking or criticizing the government. We've seen that kind of language coming out of the White House and coming out of allies of the president saying that Brennan is being unpatriotic because he's not going to be able to use his security clearance to help this administration because he's so outspoken against the president. So I think that's what we saw from these officials, saying you can criticize the president, this is still America, and still be patriotic.
And again, Brennan has been out there a lot. He said that he finds the president's behavior treasonous. He says he doesn't think he's committed treason. He just wanted to use that word. He is paid on a network that, especially in prime time, is a very political, progressive, left-of-center network. And so that's where Republicans on Capitol Hill are hiding behind. They're making it about John Brennan, not about the bigger question. The president didn't consult the CIA before he did this. He didn't consult his director of national intelligence before he did this. He did not follow the clearly spelled out process for taking away somebody's security clearance, where you lay out the behavior that makes you worry they should have it. Instead, as he told the Wall Street Journal, he pulled Brennan's because Brennan's a critic, was there at the beginning. Listen to Republicans on Capitol Hill trying to make this about Brennan, not about the idea that there's this constitutional right to this thing called free speech.
I think I called him a butthead, and I meant it. I think he's given the national intelligence community a bad name.
I think the things that John Brennan has said over the past several months about this country has been disgraceful.
Mr. Brennan has gone way over the line in my view, and I think restricting his clearance, pulling his clearance makes sense to me.
The fact that he's out there every single day acting in a very partisan way probably doesn't help his cause.
If the president moves on, he said he's going to get Bruce Orr, a guy who currently serves in a mid-level position at the Justice Department. The next program, next hour, you're going to see on State of the Union with Jake Tapper, General Hayden, General Clapper, former Obama administration officials. If he keeps going, will Republicans keep saying, whatever, Mr. President, do whatever you want?
Yes. I mean, yes, they will. That is exactly what they will do. Maybe at some point they might say, you know, this is concerning, or I don't agree with the president. But we've seen the same sort of milquetoast response from Republicans, no matter what the crisis is. And considering, you know, the many other things that they've been asked about, the president's comments about African Americans, the president's comments about Muslims, the president's comments about women, you know, there the GOP wags their finger a little bit harder. On this one, it's pretty easy for them to say, well, Brennan has stepped over the line because he has been so partisan, and the president is well within his authority to strip security clearances. But, you know, you listed off a lot of other people who have not been quite so harshly critical of the president. They have been. But you've also listed a lot of people who have a lot of ties to the Russia investigation. And it seems like when you dig through the people who have been put on notice, a whole lot of them get back to the Russian investigation. They get back to Mike Flynn. They get back to what the president believes is a witch hunt. And so it's very difficult to see it as any.
1 a.m., the president has tweeted about the big story that his White House counsel, Don McGahn, is cooperating with the special counsel. The president's latest one, study the late Joseph McCarthy, because we are now in a period with Mueller and his gang that make Joseph McCarthy look like a baby. Rigged witch hunt. There it is from the President of the United States. I'm going to mark me down as suspect that Bob Mueller's going to be rattled by that. Let's move on now. 5 words from Eric Trump this past week. I truly hate disloyal people. His father, the president, has been much more verbose, but one word stood out. He called the Apprentice villain turned West Wing advisor Omarosa Manigault-Newman a dog. That's the president's word, a dog. Omarosa learned reality TV at the president's side. She vows she'll get the last word here.
I am not going anywhere. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not intimidated, and I'm going to go toe-to-toe with him. Everything he throws at me, believe me, my tapes are much better than theirs.
You're going to release more tapes?
If I need to, I'll do what I have to do to protect myself.
How are you going to determine whether you need to?
Oh, we'll see. He's threatening to get me arrested. He's trying to intimidate my publisher and trying to intimidate me. Donald Trump has met his match.
Now, who knows what Omarosa really has, but top Trump aides are very nervous. She's already released snippets of the president calling her after she was fired, and of her and 2 other top Trump aides discussing whether he used the N-word, and of Eric Trump's wife, Laura, calling to offer a campaign job and making clear that Team Trump is worried what a free agent Omarosa might say.
It sounds a little like, obviously, that there's something you got in the back pocket to pull out. Clearly, if you come over as the campaign, like, we can't have it. We gotta keep everything. God, no. Everybody's positive, right?
Reminds me of conversations with Mom long ago. Sometimes you get what you ask for.
Well, my colleague Darlene Superville heard this week that it's not just audio tapes, that it's also videos, that she may have text messages. I mean, Omarosa is clearly sitting on some type of trove of material. And to go back to our last segment, taking a page out of Trump's playbook and planning to release this sort of one tape or one video at a time. And this is another thing that is getting under Trump's skin, because, you know, he likes Omarosa. He liked her on The Apprentice. He brought her into the West Wing, and early on in the administration, there were a lot of people, Reince Priebus, the chief of staff, others in the administration who were trying to keep her out. It was always Trump who was bringing her back in. So in a lot of ways, he really has no one to blame but himself for what we're now seeing.
A huge problem of his own making. And to that point, again, we don't know what she has, and she's not exactly the most credible witness, shall we say. However, she does have the president, you know, saying, gee, I'm sorry you left. The president trying to cover, you know, whatever. But he has Lara Trump right there. Let's listen to some more of this. She left. Lara Trump says right there, what do you got in your back pocket? They're clearly worried. I don't know if they knew she had tapes, but they knew that she was around the West Wing all the time at a very important time. And listen to Lara Trump right here essentially saying, we want to bring you into the fold. We will pay you, but you got to be nice.
The only thing that we have to consider when we're talking salary as far as the campaign is concerned is that, as you know, everything is public. and all the money that we raise and that pays salaries is directly from donors, small dollar donors for the most part. So I know you were making 179 at the White House, and I think we could work something out where we keep you right along those lines. Specifically, let me see, I haven't even added up the numbers, but we were talking about like $15K a month.
It is a remarkably transparent negotiation.
Yeah, also a lot of money. That's a lot of money if you look at campaign payrolls to pay someone who is not managing the campaign, running the day-to-day operations of a campaign, but essentially, going out there and maybe being a surrogate or whatever the role was they were talking about. And I think that, the great irony of this is we don't know what Omarosa has. Yes, she's trickled out things like this, which don't look great, but it's not the same as having a tape of the president saying the N-word, but she has learned from the best. She has learned from Trump, and so she's learned that if